Hey there, welcome back to Total Geek Baltimore Presents. I am Baltimore, and today I'm bringing you X-Men Deadly Genesis. This right here, got a really kind of a cool comic cover. We have basically the giant-sized X-Men, where the all-new, all-different X-Men are introduced. Homage to that, but all of them are skeletons, so it's kind of cool to see that. And of course, it's very, very important to have this because this story, the 6-issue miniseries by Ed Brubaker and Trevor Hairsine, was basically, I think of it as kind of like the really big, like, into Xavier's fall from grace. And it's kind of like what really solidified him as persona non grata in the X-Men universe for quite a while. And I don't particularly like the idea of that. I'm not sure it gets, where do you go from here and how do you kind of finish that story if something so terrible and something so awful happens? How do you get back from that? So it's kind of like, how do you kind of forgive something for this? But like I said here, Professor Xavier's darkest secret revealed. And what happens is, so we all know the story of the all-new, all-different X-Men. The original X-Men plus Havoc and Polaris are sent by Xavier to discover, Krakoa, who is a mutant island, who is feeding off the mutant energies. The X-Men go to investigate it. The only one who comes back is Cyclops. All the other X-Men are captured, and he's the only one that's remaining. And of course, now we kind of think about it from a different lens, where Krakoa let Cyclops go because he needed more mutant energy. So maybe Cyclops would come back and with more people, and he'd have more mutant energy to feed off of. So that's kind of like the idea here. We have Xavier not going directly to finding the all-new, all-different X-Men. He has a different solution in mind, and it comes in the form of 4 other students who we have never known before. He's secret X-Men team, 1.5, so to speak. And it's filled up with the actual third brother of the Summers, which is Gabriel Summer. He's called Vulcan in here. We have Darwin, who is a mutant who can basically evolve himself into anything that will help him survive. Sway is a mutant who can stop time and time portals, time bubbles, slow time down. So that's her gift. And then we have Petra, who is a geomorph. She can create rocks. We can make her do her bidding. She can actually exert enough pressure to create diamonds out of rocks. So that's really kind of fascinating to see them together. The other person who was supposed to be part of this team, or is in talks or being recruited, is actually Emma Frost. And that's kind of fascinating because, at that time, Emma Frost was already supposed to have been in the Hellfire Club. This kind of swishes with that kind of thought and, changes that moment. But Moira McTaggart is the one who helped Xavier train and find these students. And, she's scared about this. She's worried because she doesn't think they're ready for, their first rescue mission or battle or whatever. And Xavier mentally trains them all, makes them go through mental training as if they were actually really training so that they would be prepared. And it's kind of interesting technique because this is something that Jean Grey actually did with the Eve of Destruction X-Men, a few years earlier. She mentally trained them to, kind of work as a unit. So Xavier has Cyclops and the 4 new X-Men, and they are going to go and try to retrieve the original X-Men from Krakoa. Cyclops finds out that Vulcan is actually his brother, and it's his mind kind of blown situation. And, for a lot of us too, we're actually, this third Summers brother has been lingering on for almost 15 years at this point, maybe more, with an offhand comment from Mr. Sinister. And then there was talk that the third Summers brother was actually Adam X, but there's no complete confirmation of that. They don't want to actually confirm it, and I don't kind of blame them for that. He's kind of complicated as a Summers, but So we have this 1.5 team of X-Men led by Cyclops going back to Krakoa, and it's a bloodbath. It's They are not prepared. They are not well ready to take this on. To Moira's point, and they are killed, um, and violently so. The four of them are killed, and Cyclops again escapes, and now he's coming back to Xavier with, not only his original team dying or dead and captured, his second team that he brought in to rescue them decimated. And Xavier is distraught, and he decides that the only way to make this right is to find the others. And that's when he actually goes about and does the classic recruiting of the X-Men: Nightcrawler, Storm, Colossus, Wolverine, Thunderbird, Banshee, and Sunfire, and bring them all together to go with Cyclops to go rescue the original X-Men and see if the 1.5 team was around. So that's basically the backstory. What happens now is after House of M and the M Day, when Scarlet Witch said no more mutants, Xavier is left without his telepathy, without his mutant powers, but he has the ability to walk. And he's disappeared from the X-Men for quite a while. No one knows where he is or what's going on with him. But we get these, after all the energies from the mutants have been expelled into the atmosphere. One particular rock of Krakoa is still there, and clung onto it is Vulcan, with Darwin inside and Sway and Petra's powers absorbed into him. So Vulcan is reborn, comes back down to Earth with his memories and his scarred being, realizing that the X-Men are at fault for this, and he wants to expose Xavier, expose the X-Men, and get his vengeance. And the X-Men team at this time, includes Cyclops, Emma Frost, Beast, Wolverine, Colossus, Kitty, Nightcrawler, Havoc, Iceman Polaris, and Rachel. And they are all the X-Men at this time living at the mansion, are going to try to figure out what's happening, and they're getting these time bubbles of previous memories, previous events that happened that they don't know how they could be witnessing, which is actually Gabriel manipulating Sway's powers to redo that. He's using Petra's geomorphic powers, and is using Darwin to survive. We find out that Moira has a secret videotape of this. Xavier has mind wiped everybody this entire experience, but because he's now depowered, that those kind of mind wipe memories are being kind of regained by the X-Men. And of course, Vulcan is, pushing that along, trying to get that kind of happen more. And of course, with Rachel's power, she's actually using her telepathy to unveil the past that's been mind wiped from everybody. Sean Banshee finds out about Moira's message and comes to help the X-Men to try to figure out what's going on. He's inbound flight from Ireland, Muir Island, and he comes in contact with Vulcan. Has another airplane that's coming right towards him, and Banshee takes off, tries to fly and stops it, but his powers have been, vastly reduced, and he ends up dying. So Vulcan has killed Banshee, a long-time X-Men ally and member, and I hated it. I hated it so much. Because it just, he's such a good character. Now, for him to go out like that, I was just so bummed. But then, through the course of the story, we do get Xavier coming back and him admitting what happened and revealing that, yes, he was responsible for this, but he did it because he was trying to help everybody out, that he couldn't help them, he couldn't save them, he couldn't bring them back, so he decided the only option was to make everybody forget about it. And that's classic kind of golden, Silver Age Xavier doing things and mind-wiping people. But because we hadn't seen it in a long time, it's kind of felt a little off. I mean, yes, we know he mind-wiped Magneto in the 90s, but he hasn't used that very often. It's a real last resort. So it's kind of interesting to see him revert to that kind of persona and style. But X-Men Deadly Genesis 6-issue miniseries, he ended up taking on Uncanny X-Men for a really great run. He did a 12-issue Rise and Fall of the Shi'ar Empire, which I really liked, using Darwin from here and Vulcan. So there is, a lot more to these characters, and they kind of do grow and develop throughout. So I do appreciate that they weren't just one and done characters, although I think Sway and Petra really deserve a second chance. So we'll see what that happens. But let me know what you think about Deadly Genesis. What were your thoughts? Did you enjoy it? Did you like it? Did it kind of tarnish Xavier for you or not? Or you're okay with it? Let me know. Sound off in the comments below. Like, subscribe, and share. And as always, it's all geek to us.